The first thing I noticed was the basement light flickering. Not the music, not the smell of burnt tequila in solo cups, not even the echo of heels clicking against tile. That one, stupid light. I wasn't supposed to be there yet. She texted me at 6:23. Pick me up at 11. Not earlier. Please. All caps. Please. And still, there I was, standing outside the side entrance of some guy's over-renovated ranch house at 10:04 p.m., holding my car keys like they were going to stop my hands from shaking. The door was cracked. Not open. Just cracked. The kind of crack that whispers, "You sure you want to see this?" I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I didn't even take a full breath. I walked in like a man in a dream, feet too heavy for the floor, brain screaming, "Nope," while my chest said, "Keep going." The hallway was dim, a jacket on the floor, someone's sandal abandoned like it ran for its life. The sound of people laughing spilled from the kitchen, sharp and close, but not hers. She has this particular laugh that starts soft and stabs hard. I would have heard it. Then I saw the stairs. And the flicker. The basement light, blinking in a slow, anxious rhythm, like a warning. I stood at the top step for maybe 20 seconds. Enough time to leave. Enough time to be the guy who respected her privacy and trusted his wife, and didn't blow up 10 years of marriage on a gut feeling. But then her voice floated up. Her voice. Muffled. Close. And then his voice. His voice. Too close. There was no yelling. No arguing. No how could use. It was the quiet that killed me. That low, murmur-quiet intimacy that never belongs in a basement between two people who aren't married to each other. I took one step down. The wood creaked. I stopped breathing. 2 steps. My legs were moving without permission. By the time I got to the bottom, I wasn't even human. I was static. Bone and fire. They were in the laundry room. Door ajar. Her jacket off. His shoes off. He said, "You sure?" She didn't speak. She just nodded. And that flickering light above them buzzed like it was short-circuiting for mercy. I didn't go in. I didn't stop them. I backed up so slow, I swear time bent around me. I walked out like a ghost, silent, unnoticed. Got in my car. Locked the doors. Stared at the dashboard for 27 minutes, watching the clock tick to 11 p.m. like nothing happened. At 11:01, she texted again. "You here?" Yeah, I was there. I was always there. She just didn't see me. I didn't talk on the drive home. I didn't even look at her. I just watched the road, hands gripping the wheel tighter every time she laughed at something on her phone. She tried to play me music. Some indie band with slow, beachy guitar. The kind of stuff she used to hate. She turned it up and said, "You'll like this. It's kind of dreamy." Like we hadn't just spent the last hour on 2 separate planets. Like I hadn't watched her in that basement with a man whose name I still didn't know. She smelled different. That's what got me. She smelled like coconut lotion, the kind she only wears on vacations, and a brand of cigarette I've never bought. She doesn't smoke. Or maybe she does now. Maybe she's picked up a lot of new habits I know nothing about. I parked in the driveway, and she leaned over to kiss me like always. I flinched. Not hard. Not enough for her to comment. But she noticed. I could feel her hesitation. That half second where her eyes wanted to ask, "What's wrong?" But her mouth decided not to bother. She said she was tired. Went straight to the shower. Left her phone on the kitchen counter. I stared at it like it was radioactive. I don't go through her stuff. Not because I'm noble, but because I've always been terrified of what I'd find. I used to believe love meant trust. But standing there in the quiet kitchen with that glowing rectangle just sitting there, my hands moved on their own. No passcode. She trusted me. Or she was sloppy. Or both. I didn't scroll far. I didn't need to. Her texts with someone saved as T were enough. Not dirty. Not explicit. But worse. Personal. Intimate. Loaded with inside jokes I didn't understand. He sent a picture of his cat. She said she'd bring wine next time. He told her, "Same time next week?" And she sent back 3 little dots. Maybe. Maybe. I put her phone down. Stepped outside. The night air felt like cold punishment. I sat on the porch steps and stared into the dark, wondering when exactly I'd stopped being her person. Wondering how long she'd been rehearsing this new version of herself. The one who wears coconut lotion to someone else's basement and says, "Maybe," to a man who isn't me. I wanted to scream. But the thing is, when you scream and no one's listening, it just sounds like breathing. So I sat there, breathing like a man underwater. When she came out 20 minutes later, hair wet, wrapped in the blue robe I bought her last Christmas. She didn't look at me like I was her husband. She looked at me like I was the couch. Familiar. Still. Silent. She said, "Want to watch something?" I said nothing. She nodded, like she already knew the answer, and walked back inside. The porch light flickered once, and I realized I was still holding the car keys. That night, I didn't sleep. Not even for a minute. I lay there listening to the ceiling fan click every 6 seconds and counted how long she took to start breathing rhythmically beside me. I used to find comfort in that sound, her breathing. Now it just felt like a countdown. Not to something I could name, but something inevitable. Something you can't stop once it started. She slept like nothing happened. Arms wrapped around her pillow, back turned to me like always, like that was her natural position, facing away. I stared at the ceiling and tried to imagine her with him again. Not to torture myself, but because I needed to. I needed to understand what version of her was down in that basement and why I didn't recognize it. I noticed something weird around 3 a.m. There was a cold spot on the mattress between us, like no one had ever touched it. Like we were two strangers in separate beds pretending to share one. I reached my hand toward her in the dark, not to hold her, not to wake her, just to see if I could feel warmth. Anything. But I couldn't. She was miles away, and I was still lying right next to her. By 5 a.m., I got up, sat in the kitchen with my laptop, and opened a blank document, trying to write something, anything, that would make this make sense. Instead, I ended up Googling, how to know if your wife is emotionally cheating. I hated myself for it. I'm not that guy. I don't creep. I don't dig. I believe in privacy, in trust. Or I used to. Before the basement. Before Beard. I didn't go back to bed. By the time she came into the kitchen around 8, dressed in sweatpants and that old hoodie from college, you'd think nothing had happened. She kissed my forehead, made herself tea, scrolled through her phone with that small, crooked smile she gets when reading memes. She didn't ask why I looked like I hadn't slept. Didn't mention that I hadn't come back to bed. Just existed beside me like we were roommates who sometimes shared air. Then, something strange happened. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, and for the briefest second, her smile disappeared. It was like watching a storm cloud blink across her face. Fast, but real. Then she flipped the phone face down and said, "Let's go for a walk today. I feel like we haven't done that in a while." That's when I knew. That's when something in me shifted. Not snapped. Not exploded. Just bent. Because she only ever suggested walks when she was feeling guilty. I didn't realize it at first, but in hindsight, every walk we ever took followed a lie. The "we need to reconnect" walks. The "I need fresh air" walks. The kind of walks where she'd hold my hand a little tighter and talk a little softer, as if each step was meant to erase a sin. So I agreed. We walked along the lake trail. Ducks waddled past us like everything was fine. She talked about wanting to repaint the guest room, about maybe visiting her sister soon. Normal things. So normal that if I hadn't seen her in that basement, I might have believed we were fine. Then she said it. Out of nowhere. No context. Just, "Do you think we're still the same people we were when we got married?" I almost tripped. That question didn't come from nowhere. That question had weight. It had Beard behind it. It had guilt disguised as philosophy. I tried to play it cool, shrugged and said, "I don't know. I think I'm a little more tired." "You?" She just nodded. Didn't answer. Looked off toward the water like it had the solution. Like the lake could somehow explain how we got here. Two people walking side by side, tethered by history, but unrecognizable in the present. When we got back home, she went straight to the bathroom. I heard her lock the door, and I went straight to her laptop. I know how that sounds. But I had to. I had to stop pretending that this was just paranoia, or anxiety, or lack of sleep. I needed to see it in writing. I needed to confirm that I wasn't losing my mind. And I did. In her email drafts, buried deep under labels I didn't know existed, were half-written messages to someone named Tobin. Unsent, but detailed, carefully composed. Pages and pages of things she never said to me. Regrets. Confessions. Vague plans that stopped mid-sentence. One of them said, "Last night, the way you touched my spine, it felt like I was home again." And just like that, I knew I was the guest in my own marriage. I don't remember closing the laptop. I think I just backed away from it, like it was something that could bite me if I stared too long. My hands were sweating. My mouth felt like I'd swallowed chalk. But worst of all, my mind was quiet. Not racing. Not panicking. Just quiet. like the engine had finally died after sputtering for too long. I sat on the edge of the bed with my fists pressed into my thighs and stared at the floor, waiting for something, anything, to happen inside me. An outburst, a breakdown, even a laugh. But all I felt was this dull throb behind my eyes, like grief was knocking from the inside. The bathroom door finally clicked open. She came out like nothing had happened, towel in her hair, scrolling through her phone again like it was her last safe place. I didn't look at her. Couldn't. I just stood up and said I had to grab something from the car. I lied. I had no plan. I just needed to get out of that room before I said something I couldn't unsay. But I didn't go to the car. I ended up walking aimlessly down the street, past our neighbor's tidy flower beds, past that mailbox I accidentally backed in last winter, past all the little landmarks of our happy life. And then I realized I still had her laptop password in my head. I still had her phone, still had access. I turned around, walked back to the house. Quiet, controlled. She was in the living room now, stretched out on the couch, watching one of those shows where people fix old furniture and cry a lot. She didn't even look up when I came in. I told her I was going to take a nap in the guest room. Another lie. She smiled, said, "Rest well, baby." And I swear I felt something break inside me when she called me that. I hadn't earned that word in a long time. Upstairs, in the guest room, I opened her laptop again. I didn't go for her email this time. I went for her Google Drive, then her Notes app. Then I tried something stupid and typed Tobin into the search bar. And I found something. It was a video. Not explicit, not obscene, but personal. So personal it hurt to watch. She was sitting in a parked car, talking directly to the camera. Her face was flushed, her voice shaking just enough to sound real. She said, "I don't know why I'm recording this. Maybe to get it out. Maybe so I don't send it to you. I can't stop thinking about you. Every time I'm with him, I think about how you looked at me in the basement. How your fingers brushed my arm like you were scared to touch me too hard. I feel crazy, but I also feel alive." She paused, ran a hand through her hair, bit her lip, then said, "I don't know what this is, but I know what it isn't. It isn't fake." Then the video ended. I didn't move. I couldn't. I sat there frozen, heart pounding in this sick, slow rhythm that made me feel like I was about to pass out. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the laptop. I just felt this hollow emptiness crack open inside my ribs, like she had reached in and scooped something out of me that I would never get back. And then, this is the part one haven't told anyone. I replied to one of the email drafts. I don't know what came over me. I just opened the oldest one, the one that simply said, "I can't stop thinking about last Thursday." And I typed, "Neither can I. He's still here. He doesn't know. Yet." Then I hit send from her email and sat there, waiting. Less than a minute later, a reply. "What the hell, Noreen? What is this?" The blood left my hands. He didn't know it wasn't her. That meant she never sent him anything. She just wrote them, composed them, but never delivered. And now I had. I closed everything, cleared history, shut the laptop and shoved it under the bed like a bomb I couldn't disarm. I stared at the wall until my breathing slowed. Then I walked back downstairs. She was still on the couch, still watching people cry over chairs. I sat beside her and said, "Hey, you ever think about going away for the weekend? Just us?" She turned to me, smiling like I was a miracle. Yeah, I'd like that." And I smiled back. But I wasn't thinking about a weekend getaway. I was thinking about how fast lies unravel when someone else starts pulling the threads. We didn't leave that weekend. No bags were packed. No road trip playlist. No romantic cabin in the woods. I canceled the whole thing by pretending I had a stomach bug. "Food poisoning," I said. "Bad Chinese takeout." She even offered to rub my back while I fake moaned in bed like I was dying. I let her. It was twisted. She was touching me like a concerned wife, and I was lying there imagining her hands on someone else. And the worst part? I still craved the contact. I still wanted her to want me, even if it was fake, even if it was built on a pile of broken glass. I just needed something that felt like love, even if it had teeth. The man, Tobin, never replied again. Maybe he figured it out. Maybe he thought she was playing games. Or maybe I scared him. Either way, I watched her phone like a hawk, checking her notifications when she left it face up. She never changed her passwords. Never put her phone on Do Not Disturb. Almost like she wanted to get caught. Like some part of her was dangling the rope, daring me to pull. By Tuesday, I had developed an entire second life in my head. A life where I wasn't Howard, the mild husband with a slowly rotting heart. I was someone else. Someone who watched, calculated, cataloged. I started writing things down. Not just what I found on her devices, but everything. What time she left for work, what shoes she wore, which earrings she picked. When she said, "I love you," I logged it. When she didn't, I logged it too. I told myself it was for clarity, that I was collecting data. But deep down I think I just wanted to see if the pattern of her betrayal had a rhythm. Then came Thursday night, exactly 1 week after the basement. She said she was going to a late yoga class, the same one she used to drag me to before she realized I had the flexibility of a broken toaster. She kissed me on the forehead, like always, and left wearing her dusty pink workout set, the one that used to be mine to admire. I waited 15 minutes. Then I followed her. I didn't tail her like in the movies. I gave her plenty of space. I kept the headlights off for a while. She drove out past the gym, past the strip mall with the frozen yogurt place we used to fight over, and into a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Newer houses. No streetlights. Just wide, empty roads and homes that looked like they were built from Instagram filters. She parked 2 blocks down and walked the rest of the way. I pulled over and killed the engine. She rang a doorbell. He opened it. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I knew it was him. Broad shoulders. Slouch posture. One of those guys who pretends to be humble but oozes confidence through his pores. She didn't go inside right away. They talked at the door for a bit. She laughed. Not loud, not flirty. Just soft. Familiar. Like she'd been coming here for years. Then she touched his chest and walked in. I stayed parked there for 45 minutes. I didn't take photos. Didn't record video. I didn't need proof anymore. Proof was a myth. You don't need evidence when you've already drowned in the truth. I sat there and listened to my own breathing. Listened to the silence of a night that should have meant nothing but meant everything. I was watching my life from the outside, like someone else's dream, or maybe their nightmare. I didn't wait for her to come back out. I drove home. And when she walked through the front door 2 hours later, sweaty and glowing, saying something about how brutal the new instructor was, I smiled and asked if she wanted tea. I made it perfectly. Honey, ginger, dash of lemon, just how she likes it. She said, "You're being sweet tonight." I said, "You inspire me." And then she curled up on the couch, sipping from the mug, oblivious to how quiet I'd become. She didn't notice that I wasn't watching the movie, or that my eyes weren't blinking. She didn't notice the camera I'd hidden in the living room bookshelf that morning, or the second one behind the plant in the kitchen. She didn't know the rules had changed. Because now I wasn't just collecting data. I was building a case. There are 2 kinds of people in the world. The ones who explode, and the ones who let the pressure build until the walls of the room quietly start bowing in. I always thought I was the first kind. I used to imagine, if something like this ever happened, I'd scream, throw a plate, say something that would echo through walls. I'd catch them in the act, kick over a chair, demand justice like a man who still had fire in his gut. But instead, I sat across from my wife at the breakfast table, watching her spread strawberry jam on toast like she hadn't just spent Thursday night in someone else's bed. She licked a bit from her finger and asked if I wanted the last slice. I smiled and said she could have it. I said it gently, like it was a gift, like it didn't cost me something. The cameras worked. That morning, before she woke up, I played the footage back on my phone with trembling fingers. She was up late, on the couch, laughing at something on her phone, whispering into it, then silence. Then pacing. She made a call around 12:17 a.m. Didn't say much, but the way she said, "I miss it too," was enough. I couldn't hear the other voice clearly, but it didn't matter. She said it like someone remembering the taste of something they weren't supposed to want. Like she had already unwrapped the sin and swallowed it whole. But I didn't delete the footage. I backed it up, labeled it neatly. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called out of work. Told my boss I had food poisoning. Which was half true if you count the fact that my stomach had been in knots since the first night she touched him. He told me to rest up, and I promised I would. But I didn't rest. I spent the entire day inside my own house, moving through it like it wasn't mine. I examined everything with new eyes. The bookshelf we built together, the crooked painting in the hallway she never let me fix, the chipped mug she claimed was lucky. I started writing things down again, not in my phone this time, but in an old leather journal I hadn't touched since college. I logged her movements, her moods, what she wore, who she called. I gave everything numbers, dates, timestamps. The data of a crumbling marriage, carefully cataloged like evidence from a slow-motion crime scene. When she came home, she brought Thai food and 2 cans of sparkling water. "You need something clean," she said, kissing me on the head. "Let me take care of you." And the moment she said it, I realized something important. She didn't think I knew. Not even a little. She was either an incredible liar or completely convinced I was still the version of me who believed in her without question. And that gave me power. Because when someone thinks they have the upper hand, they stop being careful. They slip. They get lazy. And people who get lazy tell on themselves eventually. So I played along. We ate dinner. She asked if I wanted to watch that weird docuseries about cult leaders in upstate New York. I said sure. She curled up next to me, head on my shoulder, like she hadn't been touched by another man 2 nights ago. Like she hadn't whispered someone else's name in her sleep last week, thinking I was too far gone to notice. I watched the screen but listened to her breathing, counted the pauses between her words. She always pauses when she lies. That's her tick. 3 seconds, sometimes 2, just enough to recalibrate. Like a robot choosing the next script. And I realized, this wasn't love anymore. It was a performance. But what she didn't know was that I had joined the show, too. And I was learning my lines fast. That night, when she fell asleep, I went through her purse. I found a receipt. $126 at a wine bar. Not near the gym. Not near anything familiar. 2 glasses of red. Truffle fries. 1 dessert. Shared. The timestamp matched Thursday night. The same window when she said she was in class. I scanned the receipt and uploaded it to the folder on my private drive, alongside the video files, the message logs, and the voice memo she didn't know her smartwatch had recorded. I wasn't planning revenge. Not yet. I wasn't planning anything dramatic. I just needed to own the truth before she weaponized it first. The thing is, when people cheat, they're not just rewriting your history. They're erasing your version of the present. They make you question whether anything was ever real. And when you're not sure what's real, you either lose your mind or start building your own version of reality, brick by quiet brick. So I built. And when she woke up the next morning, yawning, stretching, telling me she dreamt we were lost in a hotel and couldn't find our room, I said, "That's funny. I had a dream like that too." And I smiled like nothing was wrong. Because this wasn't about dreams anymore. This was about watching which door she opened next, and who was waiting behind it. There's a particular kind of silence that lives between 2 people who are lying to each other. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's soft, almost polite. A silence that doesn't interrupt, doesn't accuse. It just watches. That's what our mornings became. Quiet routines layered with subtext. She made the coffee, I folded the laundry. She kissed my cheek, I asked how she slept. We talked like coworkers managing a project neither of us fully understood. But beneath it, beneath the toast crumbs and throw pillows, there was a war neither of us acknowledged. And I was winning, because I was the only one who knew we were at war. That week I started changing the rhythm of the house. Subtle things. I moved her shoes from the hallway to the coat closet, rearranged the silverware drawer, took her favorite mug and hid it behind the blender she never used. Nothing major, just enough to disrupt the story she was telling herself. I wanted to see if she'd notice. She didn't. Or she pretended not to. That was even better, because that told me she was trying so hard to keep things normal that she was willing to ignore the cracks in the foundation. That was when I knew she was afraid. Not of me. Not physically. But afraid of something tipping. Afraid of whatever lived behind the mask slipping out into the daylight. She'd wake up and look at me like she was studying my face for signs. Had I read something? Had I heard something? She'd ask questions in roundabout ways. Did you ever look up that yoga place I mentioned? Do you still talk to Chris from work? Like she was fishing for how much I knew without ever saying what she was afraid I'd found. That's when I decided to test her. We were sitting at dinner. Pasta. Red wine. I lit candles. Played soft jazz from a playlist she used to put on during rainy Sundays. I made everything perfect, a curated little moment of comfort. I watched her ease into it. Her shoulders relaxed. Her voice softened. She poured a second glass and tucked her legs under her on the chair like she used to when we first moved in together. And halfway through her second bite, I said, "Do you remember the first time we went to Halston Street?" She froze. I watched her fork pause in the air. She blinked once, twice. Halston Street doesn't exist. Not in our past. Not in this town. It was a name I made up. I said it like it was real. Like it had a memory behind it. I even added, You wore that blue scarf with the frayed edges. It was freezing that night. She tilted her head, smiled too wide. Oh wow, yes, she said. That was a wild night, wasn't it? I nodded, took another sip of wine, then excused myself, went into the bathroom, and let the wave of confirmation pass over me like warm rain. She had no idea what I knew. And now I knew something even more important. She was willing to pretend memories existed if it meant keeping the illusion intact. After that, it got easier. I left a wine cork from a different brand in the trash, one I knew they served at that wine bar from the receipt. She glanced at it, but didn't ask. I mentioned a friend from the old neighborhood, another fiction, and watched her nod like she remembered him too. I was feeding her false signals, and she was nodding her way through them like a woman trying not to trigger an alarm. It was brilliant, terrifying, and strangely addictive. I wasn't trying to make her suffer. Not exactly. I was trying to hold a mirror to her face, without her knowing it was a mirror. But the real turning point came when I told her I had an out-of-town conference the following weekend. It was a lie. I told her I'd be gone Friday to Sunday, staying in a Marriott an hour away. Meetings all day, bad hotel coffee, terrible PowerPoint presentations. She hugged me a little tighter that night, made jokes about missing the remote wars. I told her to enjoy the quiet. She said she'd probably just binge something and sleep late. I kissed her forehead and left Friday morning with a packed duffel bag and a smile, so calm I almost scared myself. But I didn't go to the Marriott. I drove to my brother's place across town, let myself in with the spare key, and set up camp in his den while he was out of state. I brought the laptop, the hidden cameras, everything synced. I had real-time access to the living room, the kitchen, the hallway near our bedroom. By 7:30 p.m., she was home, showered, clean clothes, wine, 2 glasses on the counter, a playlist playing softly. Not jazz this time, something newer, sultrier. By 8:15, she was pacing the living room. And at 8:37, someone knocked. I didn't recognize him at first. No beard, different jacket. But it was him, Tobin. She opened the door, and I watched her hesitate for a full 2 seconds before stepping aside to let him in. I didn't look away. I watched every second. And what she didn't know, what he didn't know, is that the wine I left behind on the counter, the bottle she reused to pour for them both, had something else in it. Not poison, not anything dangerous, just enough to remind her, when the time came, that someone else had set the table. Because now, the game was mine. Tobin stayed for 47 minutes. He sat on my couch like it was his, drank wine I paid for, ate from the cheese plate she laid out like a woman playing hostess in someone else's story. They didn't kiss. Not that I saw. But they didn't need to. The familiarity between them was enough. The way she laughed, low, easy, like she didn't have to try. The way he leaned in and rested his hand on the back of the couch, just close enough to her shoulder to make his intent obvious. I watched it all, calmly, from my brother's den with a notepad on my lap and a blinking cursor on my screen. I could have taken screenshots, could have sent them to her family, his employer, burned it all to the ground in one afternoon. But I didn't. Because something unexpected happened while I was watching them. Something I didn't plan for. I stopped caring. Somewhere between the way she tucked her leg under her body and the way he rolled up his sleeves like he was settling in for a long night, I felt it. This strange, rising calm. Not numbness. Not denial. But peace. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need revenge or closure to exist. Just acceptance. This wasn't a movie. No dramatic confrontation. No raised voices or slammed doors. It wasn't even sadness anymore. It was clarity. And clarity, it turns out, is louder than heartbreak when it finally speaks. When Tobin left, no kiss, just a touch on her arm and a next time kind of smile. She sat alone for a while. Then she poured herself the last of the wine and turned off the lights, one by one. I watched her stand at the kitchen window, staring out into the night like she knew someone, somewhere, was finally seeing her clearly. I didn't go home that night. I didn't go back the next morning either. Instead, I checked into a quiet little guest house 2 towns over. A place with creaky floors and bad Wi-Fi. I brought nothing but a change of clothes, my journal, and my laptop. No cameras. No microphones. No surveillance. Just silence. I sat outside under a crooked pine tree with coffee in my hands and thought about the boy I used to be when I met her. Soft-spoken. Hopeful, desperate to be needed. I don't blame him. He did what he thought was love. He gave everything. but I'm not him anymore. I called her that evening. Told her I knew. Told her everything. She didn't deny it. She cried. Tried to explain. Said things like, it just happened, and you were so distant lately, and I didn't know how to fix us. I let her speak. I didn't interrupt. And when she was done, I told her I forgave her. Not because she deserved it, but because I did. Because carrying her betrayal in my chest like a knife was poisoning me far more than her lies ever could. Then I told her I wouldn't be coming back. No fight. No guilt. Just truth. And silence. That was 4 months ago. Now, I wake up every morning in a different apartment. Smaller. Quieter. But mine. I started journaling for real, not just collecting evidence. I go on walks without needing a reason. I drink my coffee in peace. I even joined a book club at the library downtown, something I used to mock. I'm reading again. Sleeping again. Laughing, sometimes, without wondering if it's the last laugh I'll get before another lie lands in my lap. Noreen and I exchanged one final email last month. She said she was moving. Said she was sorry. That she hopes I'm okay. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, but because there was nothing left to say. And the truth is, I am okay. More than okay. I'm free. Free from the cold spot in the bed. Free from the questions she never answered. Free from needing her to be someone she never really was. Funny how the worst thing that ever happened to me is the same thing that cracked open the window I'd been suffocating behind for years. I'm breathing again. And this time, it's real.